everyone, my name is Chloe and today I'm here to do the Bookish this or that tag. Now this is, I don't think like an official tag really, this is just something Gwen from Gwendolyn Kinsinger did based on all of the Instagram things that are going around. Like if you have seen them, there's a ton of Bookish this or that's going around Instagram where it's like, do you want this or this? And you just highlight or circle your options. And so she took a bunch of those. I think there's 33 different prompts, and she just took a bunch of those and just kind of rapid fire goes through them. So here we go. Hardcover or paperback? I definitely prefer paperback, but a lot of times I have a hard time waiting, so I will get the hardback, and I like both, but I really prefer paperback. Inside or outside? I would love to read outside. I love being in the sun. I love being warm, but then I also do like being cozy and stuff, but overall I would prefer outside. Long or short books? Short books just make me feel really accomplished, and so I would rather have short books, but there's also not enough time to like fully develop storylines in short books. So really like the 300 to 350 range is like primo. YA or adult? Adult, just because I am 31, I'm married, I've got almost 2 kids, and so I just prefer to read about things that are a little more relatable. That being said, I have quite a few YA on my shelf, and I really like the nostalgia of YA, so I like both, but I would prefer adult. Hoarder or unhauler? I would say I do both. I definitely have a lot of books on my shelves, but I also try to clear quite a few out each month. My kind of rule is if it's like a strong 3-star or higher, I will keep it. If it's lower than that, I'll pass it on. Just because I think if I ever want to reread, if I ever want to recommend something to somebody, I want to have it on my shelves. So both. Read early or binge read late. And I don't know if this means like in the day, because if it's in the day, I typically read late just because early it's like I get up, work out, my daughter's up, and then the day's just like boom, 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 and we don't really have time. I don't really have time to read until bedtime, and so if it's in the day, I would say read late. But if they're talking about like, do you read a book early, like before it releases or right when it releases, or do you binge read late? If it's a series, 100% I like to binge read late. I like to binge read once the whole series is out. So like Winter in Paradise, I think is what it's called, by Ellen Hildebrand. I think that is the name of this. Oh, well, that's the name of the first book anyway. The first 2 are out, and I love her series so much, but I have not read either of them because I know I just will be tortured if I have to wait a year between books. So I am waiting till that series comes out. So if it's a standalone, I like to read early just because that's a fun opportunity, and then you're able to talk about it with people like as it's coming out and as people are reading it. But if it's a series, I like to binge read late. Series or standalone? I prefer standalones, and I have learned over the past year or so, if it is a series, I prefer to follow like the same character in multiple books as opposed to like a book set in a town and just following that town. But yeah, so I prefer standalones. I read a lot of series anyway. I just prefer standalones. I'm also a completionist, and so I can't pick up one book and then like set it down and read a bunch of other stuff and then go back to it. I like to marathon things, and so a lot of times with series, I'm like, do I want to commit to reading 7 books or 10 books or 5 books or whatever, however many books it is of the same thing? And so yeah, I have some issues with series, but I like them. I just prefer standalones. Action or romance? Romance. But I guess in general, I prefer character studies like over, if I had to pick like a lot of character growth and study over fast plot, I would probably say character. If I enjoy the character, I don't mind just tucking in with them and following them on their day-to-day life. But so I don't know. I like romance and I like action, but probably romance. I don't like shoot 'em up action. Popular books or hidden gems? We all know I love my backlist books. So I like both. This is why I am terrible at the Instagram things, because I underline both, and that's cheating, I know, but I just can't decide. I like popular books, but the hype does get me a lot. So like if I have super high expectations or if something is super hyped, I almost always dislike it. And I think it's just because my expectations go in so high, whereas with backlist books or lesser known books, it's like I go in pretty blank slate, and so I'm able to just enjoy it for what it is. So I'm gonna answer hidden gems, but I like both. Would you rather meet your favorite author or meet your favorite character? That's really hard. That is really hard. I personally have no desire to write. I just am not naturally like gifted to that, and writing, especially fiction, I just don't have that creative of a mind, or my creativity is not expressed that way. So I think I would rather meet my favorite character, because my favorite author, I would probably want to know like how they write and that kind of stuff. And while I'm interested in that, I think I would prefer to do my favorite character. Classics or new releases? For sure, new releases. I'm not a huge fan of classics. I don't know what the like cutoff of when something becomes a classic versus backlist versus new release. But if I'm saying like classics versus new releases, 100% new releases. Would you rather be a published author or a published reviewer? So like I just said, I really have no desire to be a writer. I don't think that way, and writing just does not come naturally to me. So for sure, published reviewer. I would love to like be able to get any book I wanted anytime. It just, yeah, I would love that. Fiction or nonfiction? I mean, I read way more fiction than nonfiction, but I love nonfiction. Like if you told me I could never read it again, I would be so sad. So I would prefer fiction, but I like to have like maybe a 10-to-1 ratio. I probably read 10 fiction and 1 nonfiction. It may not even be that high, but I really do like nonfiction. I'm kind of a nerd though. Like I went, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and if I could go back to school, I 100% would. I love learning. I love school. And so that's why I love nonfiction, like things that are important to me, whether it be like running, I love parenting, I love faith, personal growth, all those kind of things. I love reading about those just because I feel like it teaches me something. And now that I'm not in school or anything, my learning opportunities are less in the traditional sense. And so I really like to read nonfiction, but my answer is fiction. Unlimited free books or live inside your favorite book? 100% unlimited free books, because I can't even tell you what my favorite book is, but a lot of my favorite books are women's fiction. And so they're very relatable stories. And so in some instances, I am kind of living in my favorite book just because I live a very like suburban domestic life. And that's why I like reading about it, because it's relatable to me. The other genre I really like is thrillers, and I like to read those because it makes me grateful for my like safe, comfortable life. And so I don't want to live inside a thriller. So unlimited free books for sure. Favorite book as a film or TV series? And so I don't know if this is asking for like a recommendation, but my favorite, I think would I rather see my favorite book become a film or become a TV series? And I would rather it become a film, because I think TV series, it's very hard to do and stay true to the book. Like a lot of times when you stretch out a TV series, you have to add a lot of filler or like plot, because otherwise the plot, like you can't have nothing going on in a TV series. And I feel like with a movie, you're more able to do that. That being said, we all know I'm terrible at watching adaptations, so either is fine with me, because I probably won't watch it. But if you're asking what my favorite one is, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I read that book sometime, like I think right around when I got married or right after I got married. And for those of you who don't know, my mother was diagnosed with cancer right like a couple days after we got home from our honeymoon. And so I read it at that time. The book like was so emotional, so hard for me, because I was thinking about my mother going through cancer. And then I watched the movie when I was pregnant with my first daughter. And so then it was such a mind-boggling experience, because then I'm reading or watching it, consuming it as a mother, and the idea of losing my child, like leaving my child, broke me in a whole nother way. And so that book, if you want to cry, for sure, that book or that movie, both exceptionally good. Highly, highly recommend. Read in bed or on a sofa? Both. Reading in bed at night is primarily what I do. So just because I do that to like try to calm myself down and go to sleep. But, and like during nap time, I am either on the bed or the sofa. I like both. It depends what's going on. I've said before, I really like to read with background noise and things. So if I can read on the couch while like my husband's watching a sports game or while stuff's going on around me, then I prefer that. But it's also like when I've got a 2-year-old, my room is the only place that I am like guaranteed not to have to get up and stop and, you know, stop and start a million times. So both. Library or bookstore? Library, I'm gonna say, just because I'm very cheap. I like to buy used books, and I like to support my local bookstore when I can. It's a used bookstore and new bookstore, and so I go in there as often as I can, and I just am very cheap, so I like to read things and then buy them. So both. Again, I'm going to say library and then bookstore. Not allowed any new books or no rereading. I would rather not be allowed to reread than to not be allowed to read new books, because there's a few books that I reread frequently, but for the most part, I'm reading new stuff. And so I mean, it would make me really sad not to be able to reread, but I would prefer that over not reading anything new. Buy or borrow? Again, borrow and then buy. I like to borrow from the library from my sister or whatever, and then if I enjoy it, I like to buy it just because I like to have it on my shelf for the potential of rereading, which I just said I don't do nearly enough. And also just, it like brings me comfort to see some of my favorite books on my shelves. I don't know if anybody's like that, but it's just a collection of my favorites. And I do have readers in my family, and so for them to be able to come in here and see that I've got 3 shelves of books that I would recommend to them makes me feel really good. So borrow and then buy is my answer. I'm cheating on all of these so much. Classics or contemporaries? Contemporaries for sure. I prefer things that are relatable. I don't like historical fiction that much. I'm very picky about my historical fiction, and so that's not what it's asking, but classics are typically written many, many years ago, so even if it's a classic contemporary, it's now historical fiction. So contemporary. One sitting or slow and steady? One sitting if I can, but it also depends on format. So if it's audiobook or ebook, I would like to do it in one sitting, because audiobook, I can be doing other things. Ebook, I can also like switch back and forth between reading and having the Kindle read to you, and so I can do other things. If it's a physical book, there's very few times where I can sit down and focus for that long and not do anything else. But for me, slow and steady is like picking it up at multiple points throughout the day and finishing it within 2 or 3 days. So if it's physically slow and steady, otherwise one sitting. I think a lot of books are best consumed in one sitting. It's just not practical. Sci-fi or fantasy? I don't know. I don't read a whole lot of either. I guess sci-fi. I don't really know. Like, I guess sci-fi. I don't know. I need some recommendations for both. So if you have recommendations for like intro to sci-fi or intro to fantasy, let me know. I did really like the Hunger Games and that kind of stuff, but that's more like dystopian, I would think. But I don't know. So let me know if you have recommendations for beginner books. Print, ebook, or audiobook. So I kind of just talked about this, but for me, there's nothing better than sitting down with a physical book. I love that so much. But being able to focus and have the time and not get interrupted a million times is hard for me right now at this stage of life. And so ebook and audiobook I can get through a lot quicker, and it's a lot more convenient for like leaving and going places, or just having your book around, reading a couple pages while she's going to the bathroom, or like I can't carry a book all the times where I could potentially read a couple pages when I almost always have my phone somewhere near me. So I would say print book is my favorite, but ebook and audiobook both are probably what I do more of, just because it's more convenient. So I would say print, ebook, audio. I don't know. I like the ebook. You can have the option of reading or having it read to you. And so, yeah, I guess ebook would be the one I do most of. Quiet or background noise? I already answered this. Background noise. magic earned or magic born. So again, I don't read a whole lot of fantasy, so I don't know, but I feel like magic born, there is more often situations of like people complaining about their skills but it's also they have to like figure out their skills, whereas if you're trying to earn it, then you already know all about it and you're ready to use it. And so I don't know, I actually think I'm going to say magic born because I think it's interesting like to think about what if I was given some sort of magical ability like without knowing it and then I had to figure it out and stuff. Like I think that's interesting. So magic born. Enemies to lovers or friends to lovers? Friends to lovers, 100%. I love second chance romance. I love friends to lovers. I just love when there's an already established relationship. It really helps me to buy into the romance. So friends to lovers. Hilarious banter or emotional ruin? Emotional ruin for sure. A book that can like get me in the feels is so impactful to me. And so I really enjoy like being emotionally invested, even if that is emotional ruin. Love triangle or insta love? Love triangle. I hate insta love. I think I've said it before. Me personally, I'm not a very touchy-feely or like romantic person. And so insta love is just hard for me to believe. I think it probably happens, just I can't relate to that experience. No offense to my husband, but like insta love for me, it feels like insta lust, and that is different to me. I don't know. I'm not judging it either way. I just prefer to read love triangles. Keyboard smash fantasy names or names that all start with the same letter. I 100% prefer the keyboard smash because then I can make up my own. Like if it's just a bunch of letters, I'll call them something in my head and then I can keep it clear. But I just read a book recently where there were like 3 or 4 C names in the book, and it's like that is so confusing and unnecessary. Like let's just pick a different letter. So keyboard smash. Mean parents or dead parents? I guess dead parents, just because I like, I'm assuming this is for like YA. I'm assuming, or I like getting to see people in tough circumstances, like be resilient and figure it out. And so mean parents would also fit that. But I just like, I would prefer dead parents, just to see people, I don't know. That actually is really hard. I'm like trying to think through my explanation, and I would prefer dead parents, I guess, but just because I think mean parents, it's like, I don't know how you do that, but how are you so mean to your kids? But so dead parents, but I can't really tell you why. Supermodel looks or constantly saying how plain they are. Both of these are so annoying. Both are very annoying. But I would say probably constantly saying how plain they are, just because I can relate to that a little bit more. I am very generic, and so I think I can relate to the plain thing a little bit more, but it's annoying when they say it all the friggin' time. So yeah, plain. Face on the cover or typography on the cover? I don't really care. I like the trend of like illustrated covers that's going on right now, but and so I guess that's more typography, but I guess I'll go with typography. Just also too, I like to be able to envision people on my own. I really don't like movie tie-in covers. And so I guess seeing a face, it kind of eliminates that possibility for you. So I'm gonna go with typography. And then the last one, villain turning a little good or hero turning a little bad. I'm gonna say hero turning a little bad, because villain turning a little good, I have a big problem with the trope, especially in YA, of like girls changing guys. I just think it's so unhealthy and such an unrealistic expectation for young girls. And so I hate when there's like a bad boy and he changes because of this girl. I don't like that trope at all. And so then if I'm thinking about, and even in adulthood, but I think adult people are more able to understand that change is more internal than external. But so I'm saying hero turning a little bad. This is a long-winded explanation for my answer. Hero turning a little bad, because I think there is a little bit of bad in everybody, no matter how great you are. And so I think that's more believable and relatable to me. So that is the Bookish This or That challenge, tag, whatever you want to call it. I will link Gwen's channel down below where she did this. And if you want to do it, go for it. I would love to hear your answers. There's, like I said, 33 of them, so I don't know if I'll list them all below. Probably not, just because that would take forever. But if you have any answers, please let me know what they are. If you have a channel, do this tags. I think they're so fun, and I love them on Instagram. I love them here. So let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.